Well, let's turn then to recent comments by Ilhan Omar, who said that Trump is a pedophile and should be executed. She seems to not understand the culture of the United States, that even if she thinks he's a pedophile, he's innocent until proven guilty. And then the whole idea of execution, et cetera, is
She
extreme.
has immunity as a member of Congress of what she says, I think, on the congressional floor. The last celebrity who said that, said something similar, was George Stephanopoulos. He said that, I think, 11 times that Trump was a racist. Remember in the E. Jean Carroll trial, the judge misspoke, or he was so unprofessional when he said Trump was not convicted of rape, but sexual assault. But he said, what's the difference? But there is a difference under the, a very broad sexual, you can touch somebody, it's a sexual assault. But so she should be careful because there's no evidence. In fact, she had pretty poor timing because, about 48 hours before she said that, a archive emerged where Trump himself had called 2006 before Jeffrey Epstein was even convicted of anything. So he was saying, you got to get this guy out of here. And the subtext was he had seen him with these young girls. And so it's pretty clear that he didn't go to the island. He didn't partake in what Jeffrey Epstein was offering, yet she says this. And then she says, at least in Somalia, we execute pedophiles, i.e. like Trump. But then the point is, well, you've been accused of contrasting in a negative way the United States with this failed state of Somalia. You said that the United States was trashy and dirty. You said that the dictators were worse here. Why would you go back to that meme or theme again, that things are better in Somalia because you execute pedophiles and you don't do it here? Especially given your family's history, where your father was a general who was one of the military hirelings, I guess it's President Barry or whatever his name was, that committed genocide. And that's how you got here. People forget that about her. She poses as a left-wing cause celeb, but she was from the elite of the elite government hierarchy that was conducting a war of death. And that's how they fled here. And I think a lot of the recklessness that she's speaking about, because she's getting very reckless now, and that shows me, and I think the people who are listening, that she's desperate and she's afraid. And she's afraid and desperate for what? For two reasons. One, she filed a financial statement that said she could be worth up to $30 million. And the year before, she had almost no money. So she married this person who she had been paying as a campaign operative. And then he had no money, and now suddenly we find out he has a winery worth millions of dollars. He's got all these businesses. And so the obvious implication is that there are people who were giving him money for influence with her. But we don't know that. But she needs to explain how she can be in Congress. I mean, Nancy Pelosi became worth a couple $100 million, but it took she and her husband 40 years with inside trading and all that. She needs to say how she made $30 million in 1 year. And the other thing is, of course, the $8, $9, $10 billion Somali fraud is getting very close to her. She knows that she's the pinup girl for Somalia. She, by her own volition, she wanted to be the face of the Somali immigrant. And, 75% of the people are on public assistance, first and second generation Somalis. So if you go, if you want to be the pinup for the Somali immigrant community, then when you think that in the post-George Floyd woke era that's cool and neat, and you're going to get a Somali mayor, which they almost had, and you were taking over Minnesota, and then when things go south because the real Somali community is disclosed, and then all of a sudden you say, I'm not, I had nothing to do with it. Well, she did. And all of these people, everybody in elected office, Fry, Waltz, Ellison, either got money from the Somali community or knew what was going on.